أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. It's good to see you all again. Alhamdulillah. Who can remind us what we're doing here? Other than praying Isha.
Reflections of the Qur'an.
Yes. A circle of dhikr, yes. Alhamdulillah. Reflections from the Qur'an. So the idea is to have shorter, conversation, discussions based on an ayah or some reflection of some ayahs. Right? And the topic for today, I thought we could relate it to something that's timely, which we'll find out what that is in a few minutes, inshallah. But I was listening to and reading some notes of a brother who was delivered a lecture recently somewhere else, and he mentioned this ayah that I wanted to discuss, and it really made me think, and it resonated, and it has some very important messages, I think, that are pertinent, particularly for today. Right? That is the ayah in Surah Ar-Rum, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the singular, directing it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا. So direct yourself towards the deen. To the nearest meaning, like interpretation of the meaning. Direct yourself towards the deen, right? The deen of Allah, Hanifa, purely, solely to that, not, mixing it with anything else, not viewing it through a different, maybe prism or a different lens, or being affected by anything else. No. Direct yourself, your attention, your face, your heart towards the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Hanifa. فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا. The fitrah of Allah that Allah created. The fitrah of Allah that Allah created and stamped upon every human being. And fitrah, just quickly here, we'll just translate as a natural disposition of a human being. لا تبديل لخلق الله. There is no, or let there be no change in the creation of Allah. ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ. That is the upright deen. That is the straight path, the straight deen. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But most people, unfortunately, don't know, or don't understand, don't appreciate this. Now there are many. This is one ayah in Surah Ar-Rum, ayah number 30. Now what's particularly interesting about this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala apparently used three terms which are used interchangeably here. Number one, the deen, right? And I purposely didn't translate it as anything yet. The deen is something we kind of recognize what it means, but often it's translated into English as religion, right? I personally don't like this translation, or even the word religion to describe Islam, for many reasons. Okay, and we can talk about it in a minute. But the deen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to the deen. What is the deen? That which the Prophet ﷺ was sent with. Right? The whole way of life, the whole manhaj, the whole methodology, the whole language, the whole epistemology, the way of thinking, the way of coming to know something, all of this is included in deen. That which was given to the Prophet ﷺ and which he conveyed to his ummah. All of that thing that we call Islam, that we call deen. Number one, that's used interchangeably with what? Fitratullah. Fitra. With the fitra of the human being. Fitra is the natural disposition that Allah created human beings upon. Right? The natural disposition. So that is being used interchangeably here with, Allah is using this in a way to describe the deen of Allah. And both of them are used interchangeably with what? لا تبديل لخلق الله. Let there be no change in the khalq, the creation of Allah. ذلك الدين القيم. That is the straight, the upright, the firm, the powerful deen. So Allah used interchangeably what three terms? Number one, deen. Number two, fitra. Number three, creation. Khalq, nature. These three things are used interchangeably here. Why? Why? What do you think? They all encompass the same thing? Could argue that? They said they're all similar to what you said, they're all harmonious with one another. And that's something we often don't maybe think about and appreciate and tell each other, tell our children. That the deen of Allah, Islam, Sharia, everything, all of that stuff, that is fully coherent with and in harmony with the way human being is created. Your natural disposition. And that likewise is coherent with, in harmony with the rest of creation. The way Allah creates something. Allah has His signature in this creation. Parts of it are coherent with other parts. You know? Just look at the notion of a wave, for example. I was just listening to an audiobook the other day. The person was talking about it. But wave, just anything, waves, right? You have waves on the sea. You have waves in light, the way light behaves, right? You have waves in the way human beings act. Societies, right? Economics, they talk about waves, about economic cycles. Pardon? Sound waves, right? A lot of things, that are these show the particular order that exists amongst the chaos, right? This order, this signature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another signature of Allah is things are created in pairs or in groups, right? And He mentions many of these pairs in the Qur'an to get us to reflect. The heavens and the earth, the sun and the moon, the rain and gardens, obviously man and woman, even pairs in terms of iman and kufr as a pair, right? So, this fitrah that we've been created upon, the whole deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Islam, and the creation as a whole, they're coherent with one another. Right? And why wouldn't they be? Because they all come from the same source. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created the universe. He's the one who created the human beings, and He's the one who revealed the deen. So you would expect them to be coherent. But we don't necessarily act that way, do we? Often we feel that there's some kind of conflict between, the real world and the Islamic bubble that we're supposed to occupy. Right? Because we don't appreciate this coherence, this harmony. Many of us, we have one bubble for the masjid, for Islamic stuff. In this bubble I'm going to act like this and do that. But when it comes to the real world, I'm at work, I'm at school, that's a different bubble. Because maybe the way that we approach Islam or how it was taught to us. All of these things are coherent, they're in harmony. But if one of them is distorted, if one of them is manipulated, then it disturbs the relationship with others. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has laws, right? Some laws we're forced to obey, like the laws of nature, physics, electromagnetism, whatever. We are forced. The whole universe, everything that exists in this universe is forced is subjugated by these laws. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice of, obeying or not obeying gravity. But there are some laws He's given us a choice in. Right? Obviously, anything that's legislated, pay 2.5% zakah, pray 5 times a day, honor and show kindness and excellence to your parents, show mercy to the young people, establish justice. Now, just like everything, all matter, right, from the subatomic particle all the way up to, celestial bodies' interaction with one another, just like they are in harmony and in balance when they're subjugated by these laws of physics. Likewise, if we obey those laws that we have a choice in, likewise there will be balance, there will be a degree of harmony and coherence with everything else. But when you distort something, it will throw that into imbalance. Because why else would you, if the deen and the fitrah and the creation are interchangeable, then why do you need revelation? Why do you need, why do we need a prophet to tell us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to inform us of certain things and to teach us certain things? Why? That's not a rhetorical question. I'm asking you why.
I think I just said there are different bubbles which basically cause people to deviate from the right path. Maybe they affect our actions.
Mm-hmm.
So to keep humankind on direction, on the right path, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent prophets.
Okay, good. Yeah, to keep people on the right path, because there's distraction, there's things that will deviate you. Yeah.
It's in our nature to corrupt.
It's also in our nature to destroy things and corrupt things. Yeah. So a human being is made of the fitrah plus something else. There's other things involved. Right? A propensity towards greediness, temptations. There's also external factors, right? Like shaitan, whispering. External and internal, yeah. Whispering. Pardon? Yes. The nafs, the part of the nafs that inclined you towards evil. Greediness, arrogance, selfishness, these types of traits. So, the simple fitrah that has been uncorrupted, right, that is in harmony with the deen of Allah and also the creation as a whole, right? But, and the Prophet ﷺ said, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى فِطْرَةٍ. Every child is born upon the fitrah. And his parents make him a Jew, Christian, Zoroastrian. But he didn't say his parents make him a Muslim. Right? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And they derive some lessons from this. Like, not that the fitrah is exactly the same as Islam, because obviously you don't know how to pray exactly, you don't know details. But what does the fitrah include? The natural inclinations that you're born upon, right? They include what? A belief, this is what anthropologists say, a belief in a non-anthropomorphic creator. That just means a belief in something that created the world that's not like what you see in the world. That's separate from it. Right? This is across cultures. This is what they call a properly basic belief. Across cultures, independent of, it's not something that you're socialized into. It's not something that you have to be taught. Right? It doesn't require information transfer from one person to another, one culture to another. This is something people are born, it's ingrained on them, it's stamped onto them. A recognition, and someone add a yearning to know and venerate and glorify a creator. The creator of this, what you see around you. This is what the fitrah contains. What else? Also it contains a rough moral compass. Not details, but let's say an inner circle. An inner circle where naturally people will come to the conclusion that justice is good. Stealing is bad. Charity is good. Killing is bad. Right? Not the details necessarily, or if there's a conflict between one another, but generally speaking, the fitrah contains the building blocks of a moral conscience. Okay? What else does the fitrah include? And this is particularly timely for our day and age. It includes some aspects of our akhlaq, such as haya, shyness, modesty, shame, bashfulness. All these kind of can be translated as haya. Now, if the fitrah is very similar to Islam, is very similar to this nature, the creation, why do some people, many people, not like Islam or dislike Islam or call against Islam? Right? Because of this imbalance. If somebody doesn't like Islam, it's human nature, they'll assume the problem is with Islam, not with them. Yeah? But we say no, if you don't like it, there's something wrong with you. Maybe you're misunderstanding something about Islam, or you have been socialized out of something that was once there in your fitrah to make you dislike Islam. For example, haya. Haya is from not only a branch from Iman, but haya as a phenomenon is something intrinsic to a human being. And it was something that was reinforced by every prophet. Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ مِمَّا أَدْرَكَ النَّاسُ مِنْ كَلَامِ النُّبُوَّةِ إِذَا لَمْ أو فافعل ما شئت. From the kalam of nubuwah, from the what people learned from prophets before us, before him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is that if you don't have any shame, then do whatever you want. Shame, shyness, bashfulness, modesty, this is a natural safeguard against morally repulsive behavior. Right? But what if haya, what if you live in a society such as ours, for example, where haya is seen as something bad, something wrong, where haya is actually actively socialized out of children, or children are socialized out of haya. One of the earliest memories I have of school, of primary school, is, you know, when going on these trips and that kind of stuff, just the teacher telling boys and girls to either sit together or hold their hands when you're walking along the street, and the boys and girls saying, "Oh, I don't want to hold his hand." The girls saying, "I don't want to hold the boy's hands." The boys saying, "I don't want to hold the girl's hand." Why? This natural, something haya within them. Right? And what does the teacher say? No, hold your hands. You have to. Right? It's not like you're getting married or anything. I would say. Simultaneously, kind of malnourishing a person's haya, developing child's haya, as well as giving them some weird negative view of what marriage is. Right? I mean, this is maybe a funny or a relatively minor example, but it shows that in some societies, according to some dominant cultures or ideologies, things like haya are maybe downplayed or malnourished in a person, in a developing child. Now, as a result of this, that type of person, many of us, when we come to the sunnah now, and we see within the Islamic paradigm or worldview, we see interactions about men and women interacting. We might think this is a bit weird, or this is this is impractical, or this is insert whatever pejorative here. Why? Is the problem with Islam? Is the problem with Sharia, or is it something that we have been socialized out of? Right? And there are many examples of this, if you think about it. If you think about the major kind of critiques people have about Islam that aren't actually based on, genuine kind of mistakes or misunderstandings. They are why does Islam like X, Y, Z? Why does Islam allow polygamy? Why does Islam allow this or that? Right? And it's not something which is impossible for the fitrah to accept. Like, why does Islam call for a God which is three and one at the same time? This is something that just naturally a fitrah would reject, just from the perspective of an impossibility. Right? Like calling for a four-sided triangle. It's impossible. But the things which people might dislike about Islam are to do with their background. Right? What they've been socialized into what people have been cultured upon. Now, just like see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions, in a very, very powerful ayah, اعلموا أن الله يحيي الأرض بعد موتها. Know, understand that Allah, it is Allah who gives life to the earth after its lifelessness. قد بينا لكم الآيات لعلكم تعقلون. And we have certainly clarified or explained our miracles, our ayat, our signs, so that you may give thought, so that you may use your aql. Imam al-Tabari said about this ayah that there's a symbolic meaning behind this. Right? The apparent meaning is what? A reminder that Allah is the one who brings down the rain, and with the rain He causes the earth to sprout out its vegetation, its gardens, and that attracts insects and birds and other animals and so forth. Right? So what was once an empty, barren land, now because of this mercy, Allah has caused life to come to what was once lifeless. That's one kind of layer of the meaning. But Imam al-Tabari said that this is an indication to the heart of a human being. That just like rain brings life to lifeless land, likewise the revelation of Allah brings life to a dead heart. The revelation of Allah, the remembrance of Allah, the guidance of Allah, the deen of Allah, that whole circle, it brings life to a dead heart. And the opposite is true as well. Remember the iconic ayah we all know. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Adam alayhi salam to this earth. اهبطوا منها جميعا فإما يأتينكم مني هدى فمن اتبع هدايا فلا يضل ولا يشقى. Go down to this earth, and whoever بعضكم لبعض عدو, one of you, each of you are an enemy to another, referring to human beings and shaitan. فإما يأتينكم مني هدى. But whenever any guidance from me comes to you, فمن اتبع هدايا فلا يضل ولا يشقى. Whoever follows my guidance, he will neither go astray in this life, nor will he suffer in the hereafter. And then Allah said the ayah we all know. وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. But whoever turns away from my remembrance, for him is a miserable life. Just imagine, we alhamdulillah, we're Muslims, we often take this for granted. Imagine if you didn't know Allah. Imagine if something happened to you and you didn't know who to call upon. Imagine if somebody passed away in your life, and you didn't know what was happening, what you were supposed to do. Imagine if you didn't have these answers to these questions. Imagine if you didn't have, when you're feeling depressed and you're feeling low, you don't have anyone to call out to. What a tough and sad life would this be. But with this comes great responsibility as well. Because there are many people just going about their life not knowing Allah. And had they just been told a portion of what you know, maybe they would jump at the chance. Maybe they would jump at the chance to revive their hearts. All of us have some Qur'an memorized. All of us know the meaning of some ayat. All of us know people who maybe are going through issues, they need this guidance. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتِمَّ صَالِحَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. He didn't say I came to introduce something completely new. He said I was only sent to perfect good conduct. Meaning what? That people recognize, they have the recognition of certain elements of good conduct. The Prophet ﷺ came to perfect that, to bring it completely in line with what Allah desires and what is best for human beings. The whole Sharia, many ulama said, is founded upon the maslahah of the ibad, the benefits and the interests of the slaves in this life and the next. Many people said this. Imam Ghazali said this, Ibn al-Qayyim said this, Shaykh Musa ibn Taymiyyah said this. Many people, different schools of thought, everything. They recognize what the whole Sharia is geared towards the benefit of the human being in this life and in the next. So, if you believe that the creation of Allah, the natural disposition of human beings, the guidance from Allah are coherent, unless there is a disturbance of one of them, or a misunderstanding, or a hiding of one of them. If you believe this, then you have a duty to act upon this, to inform others of this, to nurture your children, our young people, with this view, with this outlook. Not that Islam is something odd, right? Islam is something, you're a minority and act one way in the masjid and a different way somewhere else, outside. No, even if you're a minority, you are in coherence with the rest of the universe. سَبَّحَ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Even if you are as a minority amongst human beings who might be not Muslim, not glorifying Allah, when you're glorifying Allah, you're in coherence with all the atoms of the universe. Because Allah said, everything in the universe, in the heavens and the earth, is glorifying Allah. So even if you might be a minority amongst humans, you're still in coherence, in harmony with the rest of the creation, with the bees, with ants, with the clouds, with animals, with the sky, with the earth, with the rocks. Everything is glorifying Allah in its oscillations, in its in its movements, and its stillness even. But we also have an obligation to spread this mercy. This Islam, it came down as a mercy, right? To help us to resurrect our hearts after their death, their lifelessness. And we need to, so many problems are widespread today, social ills, right? Not just in this society, the whole world. But even in this society, those who are closest to you, they are more deserving of your good works and your attention. Al-aqrabin awla bil ma'ruf, right? This society around us, how many of our neighbors and our friends and colleagues are suffering from anxiety, from depression, from a plethora of mental health disorders, right? We had a panel discussion with a psychiatrist and a researcher at Cambridge. He's a Muslim, alhamdulillah, and he was talking. You could see the pain in his voice. He was saying, so many patients come in with so many issues, sadness and real genuine depression in their life, and he says it tears me apart that all they need to do is read this ayah, this surah, and it will fix their problems, fix the way they approach their issues. All they need to do is implement this Islamic practice in their life. But he can't say that because of professional issues in the NHS and so forth. But he still gives them that guidance. He doesn't tell them it's from Islam, but he sees it helping people. So many people are in need of this. The UK is the loneliness capital of Europe. And where are we? Are we helping? Are we part of the solution or not? And among these solutions is a government consultation that is underway right now. You may have heard of this, the SRE consultation in schools. Sex education consultation in schools. The government consultation ends on Monday the 12th of February, 12:45, this Monday. And regardless, it goes without saying, people with either a private corporate interest, or people with an ideological interest based on a different worldview, different beliefs to us, they are at the forefront, pushing out these certain messages to children and trying to normalize certain relationships and certain standards of what's normal, what's abnormal, what's beautiful, what's ugly, and so on and so forth. And if we don't get involved in these consultations, that we can only blame ourselves when when the outcome is completely ignoring our views, our opinions, our interests. Rather, if you feel this is, you belong here, this is where you live, your children go to school here, then it's an obligation. Even if your children don't go to school here, it's an obligation on all of us to make our voices heard when it comes to any consultation. Right? I don't need to tell you, do this, fill this form, and say this exact words. No. Your opinions as a citizen, if you are an equal citizen, your opinions are just as valid as anyone else's. And you need to make your voice heard. So we all need to take part in this consultation, right? Whether you have children or not, whether they're grown up or young, whatever. To get your voice heard about the importance of what you believe, should be taught in schools about X, Y, Z. So if you just Google SRE consultation, government consultation, you'll find the links, articles going around. You can see on the website sreislamic.org, run by a friend of mine, Yusuf. But the information is out there, but we need to actually, get up and get our voices heard. If you're like me and you leave everything to the last minute, then no problem. Just make sure you put an alarm on or something for Monday, so before midnight, we log on, we give our views. It's only like 7 questions or something, and you give your honest opinion about these things, right? So with that, we'll end there. We did say we want to make it as short as possible. If there's any questions or comments, then Bismillah. So, might not have been, maybe not that coherent, but if there's 2 take-home messages. One is to, obviously this consultation, fill it out, it's an action point for us. And number 2, the fitrah, the human nature, the deen of Allah and the creation as a whole is in perfect harmony, unless there is a disturbance or a discrepancy or a misunderstanding in one of them, right? And this is a feeling that we need to diffuse around us, that we need to instill and imbue our children with, so that they feel that Islam is natural for this life. It's not something odd or something that should go against, against our nature, right? Any questions or comments or?
So this hadith of the Prophet, Islam means something strange and will be something strange again. So give that target.
Excellent, yeah. I was going to mention that, but how does this fit in?
Well, it doesn't. If it's natural and it's your natural inclination, then it should be something strange.
Yeah.
So what that hadith implies is something strange. So there must be some kind of teaching of Islam for a person to become Muslim. I mean, people who are obviously in Makkah or before the arrival of the Prophet ﷺ, they there were some on the hadith, but majority weren't.
So, just to summarize, the Prophet ﷺ famously said, Islam started as something strange or odd, and it will return to being something odd. So, glad tidings to the strangers, right? And the question is, how do we reconcile this with Islam being coherent with, or in coherence with, the natural disposition of a human being, right? Who can answer this?
Interesting point, but actually it comes down to the times when the prophets were sent. Humanity had reached the pinnacle of corruption, and they need guidance. You ask an atheist, when they say the word God, they all look up. It's a natural inclination. Even raising our hands, that's always been, there's a natural inclination towards it. This hadith talks about that, and the strangeness, it just comes to talking about times close to Europe, when the signs are becoming obvious, where Islam will be dissolving more and coming towards the end.
SubhanAllah. Good points. But remember when we said it's natural for people, when they dislike Islam, to blame Islam. Right? When it's actually their own learned behaviors, their own learned prejudices and so forth that they've absorbed. Right? From their cultures, from around them. So the strangeness of Islam, I remember many years ago there was a really good lecture series on this. The strangeness of Islam is in different kind of spheres. Okay, the simple one is that being a practicing Muslim in a particular time and a place renders you odd, not like the rest of society. Right? Similar to when the Prophet ﷺ, he first began his call, only a small handful of people accepted it when it went public. Right? But that is not a feature of the fitrah. Okay? That is a feature of what happens when you corrupt the fitrah or you socialize people outside of what they were born upon. Like the haya example I gave. So if you're in a society where everything is to do with idol worship, from a young age you've been brought up worshipping idols and everything, your birthday there's an idol, you go home there's an idol, outside there's an idol, at work there's an idol, and you're socialized into this behavior, then somebody coming and telling you get rid of the idols is going to be naturally strange. Right? So they say, that's part of why they said the Prophet ﷺ, they discussed, why didn't the Prophet ﷺ say the parents make him a Muslim? Right? The parents make him a Christian or a Jew or a Zoroastrian. That's because they said the fitrah is like soil. It's like it's like good soil with all the nutrients that Islam requires to grow. If you put the seed of Islam into this fertile soil, right, and you nurture the seed, it will grow into the intended product. However, if you put all kinds of weeds and other things into this soil, false beliefs, you nurture bad akhlaq, for example, you nurture selfishness, you nurture arrogance, you nurture pride and these types of bad traits. Then when Islam comes to you, it's going to feel odd to you. Right? Because and that's what we said, because if you corrupt one of these three things, then its relationship with each other is going to be, it's going to suffer. So if you corrupt a person's fitrah, right? If you raise a child, for example, to be selfish, and then you tell him about sadaqah and zakah and all this stuff, he's going to say, oh, this is a bit difficult, man, this is a bit too extreme. Do I have to use zakah on that even my business and all that? Come on. Right? So there's a strangeness there, isn't it? He regards that as odd. Not because it's Islam, no, because his fitrah was corrupted and that natural disposition was not nurtured properly. Right? And this is very important to recognize, because it's useful to consider, to know that your ability to see the truth is influenced by the soundness of your heart. Your ability to benefit from the Qur'an, to learn something from the revelation, to interact with it correctly, is dependent on the soundness of your fitrah. And this is maybe not something that we're not used to looking at these things through, because we think, in a very kind of maybe post-enlightenment a schema of the human intellect, right? That it's like a computer almost. But it's the same vessel, it's the same kind of faculty which is doing thinking and memorizing and learning and pondering, which is also affected by arrogance and selfishness and partisanship. So these things affect these things. Remember when Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, he said he looked at a woman's leg, right, and then he began to forget things. His memory was affected. And he went to his teacher and he said, what's this? He said, I went to my teacher, I complained to him of bad memory. My memory had become bad. And my teacher said, leave sins. He said, what's this got to do with that? I'm talking to you about my memory and you're telling me leave sins. He says, ilm is a nur. Knowledge is a light. And the light of Allah is not given to a sinful person. So it's right, you're right. There are times where Islam is strange. But what did the Prophet ﷺ say? It's okay, just assimilate. It's okay, just compromise. No. He said, enjoy and be congratulated by your strangeness. Right? Because it's a function of the outside surroundings, not yourself, not something wrong with you. Jazakallah khair for bringing that point up.
So just finishing on that again. So you could rephrase that and say corruption was widespread, and once again it will be widespread.
Yeah. Corruption was widespread, and once again it will be widespread. Yeah.
Because then strangeness of Islam was there because of the corruption, because that was affecting.
Yeah.
And they're completely different contexts, aren't they? The fitra is to do with an individual and their natural inclination.
Mm-hmm.
But the strangeness is referring to how our views are viewed in the common public. So they're quite different.
So you could argue, I suppose, that
right now.
Yeah, but you could argue that the culture is made up of individual fitras.
Sure, but
and that have been,
fitra specifically
yeah.
refers to fitra, it's your natural inclination.
Yeah.
Yes, that will ultimately impact on the community, but the strangeness is quite specific linguistically to do with how Islam is viewed in public. So they're quite different. I know they're related, but they're quite different contexts.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
They're related but different. I can't argue with that.
No, they have a relation, but the concept of fitra is different to...
Yeah. Good point. Does that answer your question? Yeah, exactly. Any more comments?
So, Sheikh, how can we use this concept of treating deen, fitra, and
khalq
to give dawah to non-Muslims? Basically, how can we use these tools?
It's a good question. How can you use these tools to give dawah? One thing is to get people to recognize where their issue actually is. That's so important. Many times people won't actually disagree with the actual points that you're saying. Like that there's a creator and he created everything. Their issue is, I don't want to worship, I don't want to be subjugated by that creator. So one brother, he said, a better question for that person is, don't forget about, if there's a creator or not. Imagine if there was a creator. Would you worship him? That's a more important question. And many times some people say no. So now you see, that's the issue you need to talk about. Why no? Maybe there's arrogance there. Maybe they had issues in their relationships in the past or something like this, right? So giving him a lecture about the proofs of the existence of Allah is a waste of time for a person who, he's saying, even if you did convince me he existed, I'm not going to believe because I don't want to worship someone. Right? Or realizing that Islamically, from our point of view, atheism proper is not an actual thing. It's not people, because naturally people do believe in it. They believe in some kind of creator. But what they're disbelieving so what they're disbelieving in, on their tongue, is a particular image or a spectacle of a creator that they've been taught, or that they've assumed that why would I why would I worship someone who does X, Y, Z? It's that does X, Y, Z. Why they regard that to be bad? That that is the issue. Some people might, they might have a disagreement with something just really culturally relativistic, right? Like polygamy or something. Whoa, how could I believe in Islam if it allows polygamy? Forget polygamy. Are you saying everything else you agree with, and this polygamy issue is your issue? So part of dawah needs to focus on a separation between that which is like just literally right or wrong, and that which people like and don't like. Yeah. So people won't like an Islamic, dress or whatever, how women dress, for example. So that is the thing. That is the thing. Maybe a da'i needs to kind of probe into what is behind that person's dislike of Islam, right? Such that even if you convince him or her that there's a creator and the Qur'an is from him and the Prophet ﷺ is true, they'll still have some reservation. They'll just give you different distractions and so forth. But it actually needs to address their issue. That's why when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the prophets, their job, it's not only to teach people the revelation, but to purify them as well, to help them grow spiritually. It requires a person to you to recognize that maybe the corruption or the corruption in a person's fitrah, which aspect of the fitrah has been corrupted. I think I've kept you guys long enough. Maybe that's be a good discussion for next time. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.